ladies and gentlemen, children of all ages, welcome to the first CryptoManiacs of 2023. And it's been so long since we've seen this guy as our guest. But before we introduce our guest, Task, I got to make sure you survived the New Year's. Did you go crazy? You pop bottles? Did you get your boogie on? What did you do, Task, to celebrate the New Year?
I'm old, man. I don't do that shit. I did some work on Leo Glossary. I just do stuff. As I was telling you before the show, though, and I did message our guest last night about it. I was going through Google and I noticed Leo Glossary 3Speak is now page 1 on Google. And I'm so happy about that because when 3Speak is bigger than YouTube, which we know is going to happen, John, 3Speak will be bigger than YouTube. I mean, we'll be sitting pretty with Leo Glossary. So, now Matt and the devs and Eddie and they call me Dan. Now they just got to do their part and eclipse YouTube and we're all set and we'll be multi-billionaires.
No pressure. Well, that's going to be kind of hard because as we just learned before we went live, Starkers was saying something about his tech abilities. And then saying that I'm like a genius when it comes to this stuff, and I told him, dude,
hey, John, you're the only guy on this blockchain who's given technical advice to block trade. So, I mean, you are in a class all yourself. None of us have tried to give technical advice to block trades, and you went and took the bull by the horns.
Dude, anyways, let's not talk about my ability to give anyone technical advice, but let's welcome Matt Stark is back, the co-founder of 3Speak as well as Speak Network and everything. Well, not even a founder. We're not even going to say that. That's what we talked about last week. No founder. It's nothing at all. So
I'm just the guy in the dark corner of a blockchain somewhere. There's no founders here. We sit in dark corners, we talk shit to each other, and then someone goes, "Oh, that's a really good idea.
I should do that." Yeah,
let's build it. It's like,
let's build it.
Yeah. None of us have dev abilities. Okay, well, let's build it anyway.
Well, then that's the next problem, is it? Because now half the ideas come from some crazy ass twisted genius that's half autistic that you can just about understand if you've got a really good understanding of the blockchain, and then you've got to take that idea and communicate it to a bunch of half autistic devs that are really, really, really smart and like way on different levels to you. So then they're going to ask you a shitload of really difficult questions that you've got to answer. And it just goes back and forth like for about a year. And then eventually everyone goes, "Oh, right, that's what you're trying to build." And then they start building it. And then after that, they come back and say, "Well, we couldn't quite build it the way you wanted it, but we can do it this way." And you go, "Hell fucking no, that's not what this is supposed to be." And then it just goes on and on and on and on like that, And then eventually you realize there's actually somewhat of a skill to this game, but that's taken me a few years to work out.
So
do you hear that, Pass?
Yeah, is that why cryptocurrency is kind of like stuck in neutral? I mean, did you just describe cryptocurrency and why it's going to take us another 20 years to get anywhere?
Yeah,
possibly.
He just described, like you were saying, Task, how 3Speak is going to take over Google. He just described his game plan and marketing strategy.
By the way, we've already done that. We've already done that part. That's in the past. This is now we're really moving. We've finally got like the first line in the URL.
Love it.
Well, last week you did give us a recap of the year gone by and what happened with 3Speak and Speak Network, and you had a tough time, I think, containing yourself because there were some juicy details that you were wanting to throw out there, and it was like, well, let's do that next week. And you did say that before this call you had a dev call and a dev meeting, which I presume you do on a regular basis, and as you and the team enter 2023, where do you stand now and what are you looking at going forward?
Oh, man. I mean, right now, the team's come together really, really well. We brought 3 new devs on over the last 3 months, and they're super smart. One guy's been involved in crypto since 2012. knows his stuff, really, really interested. Spent like the last 3 months basically learning all that's going on in 3Speak and the Speak Network. And now he's finally having very articulate conversations with how we can improve things. It looks really, really good. Vortex really kicking into gear at the moment. I think he's almost, if not 100% focused on the project at the moment. So that's really good to have him there. Disregard's about to release proof of access testnet. That's going to be so good. The storage, proof of access storage rewards is going to be insanely important for Hive. And yeah, like just Eddie's just asserting himself. Eddie's kicking ass, just helping everyone with the Hive blockchain. Just knows his stuff like crazy. Yeah, it just feels like it's all starting to come together. And Devin is a weird game, because you can go for weeks where nothing seems to happen. You could be, our users haven't really heard that much from us over the last 3-4 months, but I assure you we're working. But it's just that there's, you've got things that go right, things that go wrong, small updates that you don't really need to talk about. And then but what's going to happen, I think, over the next few months is we're going to have a few major updates come out kind of not simultaneously, but one after the other. And it's going to be like, where the hell did this all come from? It's like, yeah, well, we were quiet for 3 or 4 months before because we were just diligently working away, and there's going to be a few things that come out. So it's exciting, but it's also difficult because it's like, I'd like to be able to come out with a nice new release every 3 weeks or every 4 weeks where we're like, yeah, we've done this, but it just, sometimes it's fits and starts. It doesn't quite work that way with all this development work.
When you say releases, maybe we need to break it down, because there's 2 projects that they're kind of tied together, but they are separate. You have Speak Network and you have 3Speak, which is an application that is going to be on Speak Network, but Speak Network's infrastructure and decentralized infrastructure, decentralized node system, honeycomb, a lot of different pieces and parts in that. So what you just said, are you referring to Speak Network? Are you referring to 3Speak, or are you referring to both?
Both. Yeah. I mean, I could start off like, I wouldn't say the next thing that's going to come out, but in the next few weeks, say 3 to 4, maybe 5 weeks, we are currently doing a lot of work to refactor the whole 3Speak platform. So you can go into the Speak Network repo on GitHub, and you can see all the work that we're adding to the new version of 3Speak web app, 3speak.tv. Because the old version, the one that you're currently using, it was put together pretty quick. It was kind of like masking tape together, and like slapped on its ass out the door and like, go surf people videos, And it's had all sorts of niggles and problems and things over the years, but we've managed to keep on top of most things, and it works relatively well, but it's of course got its niggles. And it's because it was all slapped together real quick. And then devs have changed over time, and new devs have come in, and you know how it goes. We've had other priorities, but we're finally getting to the point now where our real main priority is to release a refactored version of 3Speak web app, which is clean code, beautiful, smooth, everything works really, really, really well. We'll have a few redesigns inside of it, a few updates in there to make it work even better, to give you new features. And once we get that out, that core of getting that out, so we'll have Ceramic account, off-chain post into it, so you can log in with your MetaMask account, so the Ethereum community can be served with this technology. We can go shout at the Ethereum community and say, hey, we've finally got you a video platform that you can post it with your Ethereum account. Hopefully that will also be possible on Bitcoin, but I don't think straight away. Then we'll have Ceramic off-chain posting, so that allows you to link all your blockchain accounts to one Ceramic account, which is an off-chain account. The Ceramic account system is basically what Jack Dorsey's building for Web5. It's a non-incentivized node system or Web3 infrastructure system that allows people to run social media accounts. And then of course, with that, then people are going to be posting off-chain content, and everyone's going to be able to run their own node of it. But then we're going to have to tie it all together somehow. And we tie it all together by incorporating it into a feed, an indexer, with the Hive content and the content mixed together. So you're going to be able to have off-chain posting on the same trending feeds on Hive platforms as on-chain content. And we're doing this for free. We're giving it away for free. So any other platform can integrate these types of trends into their platforms, which would be quite interesting. We want to have a chat with Views to see how that might work for you guys, because at the moment, I'm assuming all your content is just Hive-based content. but we want to be able to have multi-blockchain, and we want to be able to have off-chain posting. And the beauty of the off-chain posting is that the sign-up process is so much easier, and you don't need a resource credit system to have off-chain posting. You don't need a resource credit system to put your cat videos or your cat pictures. It doesn't need to be immutable. Your LOL comments don't need to be immutable, right? So you don't need to spend resources on those things. And so we think the whole off-chain side of this is going to be really important. It might well have 90% of posts on there in the future, because people, you only really want to, if Hive does get very, very busy and it expands and starts to scale, and you get a lot of demand for resource credits and those start to get expensive, you don't really want to put your cat pictures on Hive because it's going to cost you a lot of resources. So an off-chain system will allow that to scale naturally, whilst taking all of the what I would call temporary content, the content that you don't want to be permanent. You don't want to necessarily monetize it fully. You don't need to monetize an LOL comment. You can put that shit off-chain and not use resources on the chain. So now you can really get to a place where Hive is only storing the type of posting that it needs to post inside its blockchain, and everything else, the community is incentivized to just keep it on the off-chain stuff. So there's that whole off-chain, multi-chain account, login with Ethereum. That should make the sign-up process so much easier on Hive as well, because what we'll have then, every time you create a Ceramic account, there'll be a proxy account attached to it, and that account will then track the earnings of that off-chain account, because of course the off-chain accounts can't earn money, but then when they get to a certain point, they'll be able to click a button and claim their Hive account. Right. So then this is like a two-phase login process, two-phase sign-up process, where you sign up really easy with the off-chain account or with your MetaMask, or we're trying to get it to a point where we're fairly sure we will have a Google, Facebook, YouTube account login, Twitter account login, so you can log in with any of those. I spoke to the dev specifically about that today. Wavio already has that in place. I really recommend going and checking out Wavio platform. It's absolutely great what they're doing over there, and they have a very. I tested the other day. Someone who knows nothing about Hive logged in with their Google account, posted a post to Wavio, and I saw it. It took a little bit longer, and the user was like, "Oh, what's this?" Because they've never seen this before, right? But I knew what it was doing in the background was attaching a Hive account to the Google account. So when you post with your Google account, all you think you're doing is posting with your Google. You don't even know that you're using a Hive account in the back end. And there's a proxy guest account tied to that Google account that's now posting to the chain on your behalf and earning rewards on your behalf. And then eventually you can click a button and claim it and get it out. Wavio's built all of that. So I'm trying to figure out a way we can, and it's all open source, so we're going to try and copy that with them and put that into 3Speak and Speak Network. Then you got the whole IPFS backend. Everything now is going to be IPFS pinnable. So if you want your video to be stored decentralized, you're going to be able to click a button and store it on IPFS. The mobile app's done the same yesterday as well. That's really cool. So that's like the 3Speak side, and it'll just be a much more stable system and everything like that with the refactor. And then that refactor is like the center of it all, because all the operability comes from that platform. It's like you can't really use the Speak Network at the moment unless you're using 3Speak or the desktop app or the mobile app. Of course, over time, we'll have other apps integrate Speak Network technology. We're already seeing quite a number of apps integrate 3Speak video technology, which we're hoping you guys do as well with Views. But we're working closely with Excency at the moment to do that. Leo Finance is interested to do that. ActiveFit wants to do it as well. So they're going to use our infrastructure to enable their users to have a video upload experience directly from their sites. And then, of course, as that then upgrades, as we build out the Speak Network, that will then become Speak Network enabled automatically. So Speak Network's really starting to now go through the early phases of acquiring different apps to start using its technology from a very basic level. And by default, they'll just end up switching across to the Speak Network when that all goes live. On the Speak Network side, we really did a lot of good work.
Before you get into that, Matt, just so I'm clear mentally. So what you're saying is,
sorry, that tends to happen when I speak. People get a bit cloudy mentally. Apologies for that.
Well, I do that, when I wake up and I don't leave it all day. But anyway, that was years of alcohol abuse, and I don't even. But
yeah, we've all been there.
Leaving that aside, so what you're saying is right now, as things are structured, the 3Speak platform is the hub, and you're looking at bringing other applications, Leo Finance for video, Leo Finance, ActiFit, Ecency, whatever, and looking at them incorporating maybe views, incorporating the platform into their applications.
The video uploading technology.
Yeah. So then 3Speak is tapping into what's being constructed with Speak Network now, and eventually 3Speak won't be removed, but these applications will be able to interact with Speak Network directly. Am I understanding that correctly?
So they will no longer rely on 3Speak infrastructure. Yes.
And will 3Speak go away, or will 3Speak be a platform / application that is continually developed and trying to be the next YouTube?
Yeah, well, 3Speak will have a subscription model built into it. It will have a paywall model built into it, and it will. So the subscription model will give you extra super duper video experience infrastructure. So like better CDN, better upload speeds, better encoding speeds. Then the paywalls will be for the content creators to put content behind paywalls. So we should be able to hope to take a small cut of that and monetize again there. So we think 3Speak will continue in that way. We don't really want to do advertisements in the traditional sense. We believe that advertisement is censorship. They are hand in hand. Adam Curry says that, and Brian London says that. I think that makes a lot of sense. But we do want to have like individual users being able to go direct to advertisers and then advertise through their sites, and then maybe there's a way that they can donate something back to 3Speak, and we can monetize that way. So we think 3Speak, and then of course we've got the curation rewards, and then we will release our own proof of brain token for 3Speak as well, but that's a little bit further down the line. And when I say our own, we'll do it exactly the same way. We won't give ourselves any tokens any more than anyone else is getting. We'll just drop to the community, but it'll be a proof of brain token where you get rewarded forever. It doesn't stop rewarding after 7 days. So as long as there's a vote on that content, you'll get a reward from that content forever.
Interesting.
So it won't pay out as much initially, but it will pay out consistently over time. So I think that's going to be an interesting proof of brain model. But yeah, so 3Speak will carry on. But yeah, I mean, a lot of people, we're trying to do it from the Web3 mentality, right? It's like a lot of people build their own sites and then they get like very like protective because of course you put a lot of time, energy, effort, money into it, and you don't want to lose users and things like that. But we want to approach this. We want to show how Web3 can be, even if not everyone follows that model exactly. I appreciate that everyone's got their own incentives, their own ways of doing things. But we want to be able to show we're going to open source all this shit. We're refactoring 3Speak at the moment. It's open source. Any of you guys can copy the 3Speak code, stick a views logo on it, and it's yours. And you didn't do a single day's worth of work, and you've got a whole video platform there. Yeah, that's the way we want Web3 to be. And if that means that 3Speak ultimately loses users because one of you guys was able to set up a more successful video platform using your own marketing capabilities that are far better than ours, let's say, then good, then all power to you. That's the way Web3 should be, you know. And the more that because the business model becomes, in our view, the business model becomes how much of the base token are you accumulating and holding and powering up and using for goodness and interacting with, such that if there's a network effect driver behind that, so with Hive, it's the resource credits. With Speak tokens, it's the demand on the network to access the video infrastructure capabilities. If those networks are growing, then your token price is going to grow. And it's actually, we believe it's actually in your benefit to give everything else away for free. Because the more you can give away for free, the more people will use it, the more it scales, the more demand for the base token, the more your base investment goes up. And that's where you make your money over time, as opposed to the Web2 business models. That's what we think. We don't even know if it's theoretical, right? We're going to try and prove it. But we think that it's more of an abundance mentality. It's more open. It's more counterintuitive. And a lot of the steps along the way on Hive and Web3 development have almost all been counterintuitive. When they come to forks in the road, it's the counterintuitive choice that you take, and it seems to be the one that works out. So I'm just looking forward to playing around with that and seeing how that goes. And if it does mean that 3Speak as a platform loses out on some kind of massive explosion, but Hive in general gets that explosion, I got no issue with that at all.
When you mentioned Three Speak, knowing how you and Dan are and how you approach things and structure things, when you get to that point where Speak Network is out and in the wild and applications can connect to it and do their thing, and Speak Network becomes its own platform playing in the wild, not necessarily against, but with all these other video platforms. How would you structure it? Because as you said, you'll have possibly a proof of brain token, which will be airdropped to the community. Would that also be a governance token? And would this be set up maybe as a DAO? Is that your type of thinking? Because I know you and Dan, you tend to take, like you said, the counterintuitive approach. Instead of saying this is ours, you say, okay, let's give it to the community. You and I will have our percentage based upon percentage of hive we have or whatever. And we'll all go from there and we'll all start at the same point.
Yeah. The other thing that does is it also, it makes you an owner. It makes you, Task, and you, John, owners of our platform, which means it's not our platform, right? There's certain people in Hive, in the Speak network, that haven't done a single day's worth of work on Speak, but they've got more Speak tokens than I have. And I've been working on this full time, right? But what does that do? What it means is that you are now in a place where that person, you know, especially when you've been on these platforms for on these ecosystems for a while, generally the most talented people have got the most tokens. Generally, it's not always the case, but it's a general rule. Well, that you want to bring that talent into your project, you know, and if it means that I have to lose a certain percentage of my traditional way of thinking about building a Web 2 project, in exchange for all of a sudden I've just onboarded a block trades who's now holding some of our tokens and he's interested in the project, that's massive for the project. You know, a guy like Block Trades can bring a lot of value, and I'm not trying to kiss Block Trades ass here. Don't get me wrong. He's just a talented dev, right? In this sense, and then you've got other developers as well that have got involved in the project that we wouldn't necessarily have been involved in the project if we would have just done it from the Web 2 mentality. So as a result, the project's already more valuable just for that, you know, and that's the mentality. I think that type of mentality is possible with this tech if it's done properly, whereas with Web 2 it's not possible. And so it's again that counterintuitive approach where Web 2 you just be like, you're insane, don't do that, why are you giving your shit away for free? Whereas on Web 3 it's like, well, this is possible, this is what the tech's capable to do, as long as the tech's built properly, and it's distributed properly, then that actually creates an abundance ecosystem, and potentially and should add more value to the ecosystem than what it would have done otherwise, had we done otherwise.
Well, I think what you touch upon, and I read this, I don't remember, years ago, but I keep revisiting it occasionally. And it's the difference between decentralization and centralization. And centralization is a lot more efficient. You have the top-down approach. It's very efficient. You plan, you pick a direction, everybody's on the same page, and you go. Decentralization is more horizontal in structure, and so it's less efficient. And in the short run, it always loses out to centralization. But decentralization in the long run will always win out because of innovation. Because as you give away what you create, other people, whether it's block trades, whether it's other developers, whether it's whoever, pick up on it and say, you know what, I can use this to do this. And all of a sudden they go and they take that open source software and they do something else. And whereas centralized entities, you're dependent upon those who are in-house, you're dependent upon going through the power system and saying, okay, I'm a lowly developer. I have this idea, Matt. Well, run it through Eddie. Eddie will put together a proposal. Dan and I will take a look at it. Then we'll have our board meeting, and there's 6 of us, and you need 4 votes. If you get that, then we'll approve the project. And whereas with decentralization, it's like, why are you asking permission? Just go fucking do it.
Yeah, just go do it.
You know, you have the software, it's open source, go do whatever you want and see how it works. And so going back to that little joke I made about taking on YouTube, that's not so far-fetched when you think about it from this perspective of this open source infrastructure, video infrastructure we'll focus upon. This open source video infrastructure where it's not 3Speak. It could be 3Speak and 999 other projects who took the software, who are all trying different things. And then all of a sudden, one person hits on something that works and everybody says, shit, we're going to copy that.
The whole point here is that you're making this free and available to any content creator or any community. So, I mean, 3Speak has probably got I think it's got about 40,000 users that have used it, right? And it's got about 4,000 or 5,000 users that use it regularly, right? And that's great. That's a nice little size community. But if you imagine this, we get talking to a much bigger content creator that's struggling on Web 2 because they've all of a sudden they've said something wrong and they're being censored or cancelled in some way. They're starting to lose revenue streams. Or they want to just build a more solid, robust community. Well, we say, well, we can give you the platform for free. You don't even need to use 3Speak. Because if you've noticed, a lot of these content creators, they've gone away and paid someone a shit ton of money to build their own video platforms, which doesn't hook into any decentralized network. It's centralized, and so that's siloed on the internet, which is exactly what the system wants. They want them siloed, so over time they slowly lose traction. And of course, Google will never show those sites on any search results. So what do you have? If we can give the content, instead of the content creator going and paying someone 25, 30 grand to then maintain their website, if we can just give them that for free as a video platform or as a content platform, which we're also building on the Breakaway community side, using an Xsensi fork, they get that for free. They get a platform. Then they can onboard their community. If their community is 500,000 people or 1,000,000 people, that's just blowing 3Speak out of the water. But we don't care, because the point is, that's not the point. I'm not worried about not onboarding those people to 3Speak. I'm worried about onboarding those people to Hive, you know, and everyone wins. Then everyone wins, you know.
Yeah, it's like everybody's favorite lightning rod, Alex Jones. Alex Jones has a huge following. I mean, he's not my cup of tea, but he has a huge following, and he pisses everybody off, so he gets ostracized from everywhere. And I don't know if he's done what you said, gone and built his own video platform, but you know he's being isolated as much as the establishment can isolate him. And even though a lot of people aren't particular for his flavor of whatever the hell you call it he does, news or opinion or whatever the hell it is he does, like you said, if he brings his 1 or 2 or 3 or however many followers he has over, and he uses this technology to you know, blow his bullshit out there, but these people follow, and all of this stuff is connected to Hive. They need Hive accounts. They want Hive accounts. They get involved. You know, that's beneficial to Hive more than we could do in 1,000 years of marketing and development ourselves.
Right. And in this case, we never need to go to the guy and pitch him anything. We never need to say, oh, pay us some money so we can build your platform. No, that's already done. The platform's built. All you got to do is probably get one dev to plug it in and get it running, you know? And what we've done, and I say we, it's not we, like we're just members of the community like you guys, you know? But what the community's done is given these people the human right to grow community. It's now a human right, right? It's a human right to talk to your community. No one can take that away from us anymore. You know, it's a human right to be able to communicate. It's a human right to run your own economy within your own community. It's a human right to grow your own community. It's a human right to own your own community on a blockchain like this, and that is done. You know, it's a human right to be able to set up your own platform to interact with that community. We have stopped the methods through which Web 2 uses to censor the people. And I might not agree with you, but the virtuous way of looking at this, I thought, was Voltaire's quote of, I may not agree with what you say, but I'll fight to the death for your right to say it. Right? That's the world I grew up in. That is gone. You know, well, not anymore. It's back. We've got it as a human right. It's not only is it back, but it ain't going away. You know, and that to me is it's important. It's important. It's what Western civilization is founded on. And so we have done our best to help people have that human right, which they now have. And when I say we, this is no credit to me here. You know, this is built upon the backs of thousands of dev hours of amazing people that are way smarter than me. We just understood the technology and we use it. You know, like we advocate anyone else should. I also wanted to go back to another point that you were making here that just reminded me of how I look at this technology. Like, the way I see it is that in Web 2, in the old world of centralization, you were in charge of everything to do with your ecosystem. So if you set up a Twitter, you were in charge of the account system as well, right? If you set up, as well as the front, because really what you're doing with Twitter is you're making a front end that's a nice user experience you can type some text into, and you can read some of the text, right? That's what you're really doing with Twitter. But on the back end, in order to achieve that on Web 2, you have to run the accounts. You have to store the content. You have to store the followers lists. You have to control the followers list. You have to curate the followers list. You have to store the communities. You know, you have to manage your resources on
the network admin work.
That's admin. First of all, that's admin work. And then secondly, it gives you a shitload of power. You know, if your platform becomes popular, it gives you a shitload of power. And then what happens? You get infiltrated by the ABC communities, right? The FBI, the CIA, all these guys are going to infiltrate you over time, slowly but surely, eventually run your platform, which is what's basically happened. That's all coming out of the last 2 or 3 weeks to some of these things that Elon Musk is releasing, which is obvious, but this is the proof, right? And so that's a disaster. That is a disaster. That is exactly what centralization is bad for, and it's exactly what always happens with centralized systems. And lo and behold, it's happened again. And that happens in all centralized systems. And so the question now that we need to ask ourselves, because you were talking about like convenience. Of course, these centralized platforms are more convenient. They're easy to use, although that gap's going to narrow, in my opinion, very quickly. But what then happens next is, it shouldn't be, the question shouldn't be, is it convenient or not? The question should be, how much of the shit that you're controlling is decentralizable, and why haven't you decentralized it already, right? How much of the shit that you're controlling is a public good or a public service that everyone should be able to access? Everyone should have a human access, right? So when I say you, I mean when whoever it was that built Twitter, whether or not it was Jack Dorsey, I don't know, but let's say Jack Dorsey. When he built Twitter, to give him the benefit of the doubt, the tools that were at hand required him to control all of that stuff, and then it made Twitter very powerful. Now with this technology, and this is where I'm coming to my point, sorry for the rant, but I think it's an important point. It's an important way to look at this technology. It's like, what can you do to take anything within your centralized ecosystem and put it onto a decentralized ownerless layer where a group of elected people who are elected in by stake that's earned by the community over time, so therefore that stake's distributed to the most valuable people of that community who are doing the best work. Where within your centralized entity can you put aspects of that onto that ownerless layer so that it isn't regulatable, it isn't infiltratable by some alphabet agency, it isn't shut downable, right? So that those things become inherent human rights that everyone has equal opportunity access to, right? And then what is it that you're running that really is what you do? So with Twitter, it's a front-end typing experience and text searching experience, right? That's what Twitter really does. And Twitter's office can then downsize 5,000%. They can run a much more efficient experience. They can provide a better user experience. They lose their power. They can distribute that to ownerless layers. And I'm not just talking about Twitter. This is everything. We need to look at everything and start asking, well, why is it that you're still running that element of this when it could be put over here? And what's going to happen over time? That's where we are now. But over time, I think it's going to become so powerful and so efficient and so useful for these companies to do that they're going to start racing against each other to get out of their centralized systems and put these fundamental human service goods on the ownerless layers so that they don't have to look after that stuff anymore, and they at the same time give human rights to people, and they make their operations more efficient, and it will still be just as convenient. It will still be just as convenient because you'll be able to have like login with Google or login with Facebook or login with YouTube or login with Twitter, and you won't really see what's happening on the back end. Just like what I was saying with Wavio, they've done that. They really have done that. And I did it with some. I showed them Wavio, got them to make a post. This user had never seen Hive before, knew nothing about Hive, and they've just used it like this. They've done it. They've really done it, and I think that'll be replicated. And so then it comes back to, is it really more convenient? Maybe the Web 2 models will be a little bit more convenient, maybe, but when people realize that they can have 80% of this stuff on ownerless layers that no one can shut down, that's way more powerful, because it guarantees them the right to grow community. It guarantees them the right to communicate, guarantees them the right to post. And no one can take that away. You know, I think that's so powerful going forwards. And I don't hear anyone talking about this. I'm still like the only person. Me and Dan have been talking about this for a while, but we're like still the only people that I've really heard talking about this idea of putting all this decentralizable stuff on ownerless layers to make it public service goods that no one can take away from anyone. That is the future. That is where we're going with this stuff. And I still haven't heard anyone in blockchain talking about this yet, outside of Hive anyway.
Yeah, well, most in blockchain are VCs or Ninja Mine or
same mentality,
founder stake, and they're running on decentralized blockchains like Ethereum, which they say is decentralized, but you know, one validator pool controls like 60 or 70% of the stake. So, you know, really, and they're going KYC and all this other stuff. So, when you really summarized ThreeSpeak very well. Let's move on to Speak Network, and you've laid out the idea. So to go from the ground up, the idea, I guess, and correct me if I'm wrong, you have your base layer, which is Hive. That's your account management system, decentralized, 120 different unaffiliated nodes all over the world. Running this infrastructure. It has the account management system. It has the base layer proof of brain. It has the base layer coin, 2 coins, HBD and Hive. Then you have what Disregard's working on, which you're incorporating, Honeycomb, which is this idea of incentivized, unlike Lightning Network, incentivized, decentralized layer 2 node. Is that essentially what Speak Network is, or am I oversimplifying it?
Yeah, it's more or less along those lines. It certainly captures the idea of it. The way we see it is, again, everything that I just went on that rant about, how to decentralize, you know, we should be looking at stuff as to how we can put as much as possible on these ownerless layers, right? So we see Hive as the account layer, right? We don't see why we should control the accounts of ThreeSpeak, right? We think that could be delegated to Hive. It makes our job a lot easier for sure. And then it also is more moral and just because no one can take away anyone's Hive account, right? So we think that's the first base. Hive does the resource management, so we don't really have much spam on the text side. Hive does the text storage, so we don't need to store any text. Hive does the upvoting, the distribution of currency, a lot of the governance side of things. So it does all that stuff. And I'm like, why would we need to look after any of that stuff on our own platform when Hive does all that for us? That was the initial way that I thought of it. But then you start to realize, well, because that's actually an ownerless, unregulatable layer that isn't a security, that hasn't been distributed by ICO, that the founders were forked out of, that was attacked, you know, all these things. It's like, it's a beautiful distributed, genuinely decentralized layer 1, which is ownerless. It's one of these ownerless layer 1s. So I'm like, let's use that as much as possible in the ThreeSpeak app, so that we don't have any responsibility over that, and that allows us to give the responsibility away to the chain, and then the chain provides that service to the users that use our ecosystem. But it's not in our control; it's on an ownerless layer. But then the problem that Hive has is because it's a blockchain, it can't store video. It's like trying to process a smart contract on layer 1. Yeah, we know all the other chains trying to do that, which I think is I'm not even a tech guy, and we can. You know, you don't have to be that clever to realize that you shouldn't be processing smart contracts on layer 1, but that's what people are doing. Layer 2, try layer 2. That's what we're doing. And then we start to go, okay, can we do the storage on some that's kind of on the same level as Hive? Peer-to-peer storage. But then we realize that if you do it for free, if you're providing that service for free, if you're storing videos for free, or you're running other infrastructure for free. So the other infrastructure in a video platform is content delivery, it's encoding of videos. Those are the main 3: storage, encoding, content delivery, right? If we're asking people to run those nodes for free, peer-to-peer, and any of those nodes become popular because they run up their own platform, they copy our platform, spin their own platform up with their own logo on it, and that becomes more popular. the cost of that's going to go through the roof. So then what do? They start to go, oh, let's use advertisers to cover our costs, or let's mine people's data and sell that data to cover our costs. Well, that's freaking, you've just reinvented Web 2, right? That's exactly what Web 2 is, right? That's where all these Lightning nodes are going to go. Any unincentivized layer 2 or infrastructure layer that is not incentivized by an autonomous ownerless protocol will end up getting traffic that will then increase the cost of operation, that will then require that node to go back to the old Web 2 model to fund their operation, right? So we like to say that advertising is censorship. That's fairly obvious based on history. And we also like to say that non-incentivized infrastructure operation is also censorship. That's where it ultimately leads to. And so we realized very early on that we have to have incentivized infrastructure operators that are incentivized by the protocol, and that protocol has to be a decentralized ownerless layer that no one controls, that is controlled and regulated only by the community itself, right? Because when you have that, you have a human right on the base layer. You have human rights on the base layer that are guaranteed within the protocol. And that community will always defend that protocol till the death. And if they can't defend it, they'll move to another one. They'll fork, right? Which we've already proven in the Hive fork. So we think that gives the community the best opportunity to have access to those services, right? Encoding, content delivery, storage, right? But then on top of that, like I was saying, we put distributed rewards to those infrastructure providers, because now we know A, they can stay afloat as long as we have I won't go too much into the economy of Speak Network in this call, because that needs another 2 or 3 hours, but we know that the economy is justified. It is on paper, it's a sustainable economy. It's designed so that as the network scales, the value of the tokens goes up as well. Its demand of services creates demand for the token. And so what you have then is you have a decentralized layer incentivizing the infrastructure providers. They can stay afloat, so the little guy can run a node, right? Maybe not like the biggest top spec node, the biggest encoder node may not be run by a little guy, but you're going to be able to have these little guys running these nodes in a sustainable way, right? So it keeps the big conglomerates out, because now we know the little guys can keep running. It keeps the Web 2 mentality out, because they don't need, if any of these little guys become big, they'll start receiving rewards from the protocol, which is driven by the scale of the network, which won't require them to have an advertising model. It won't require them to have a data sales model, right? They could do that if they want, but then no one's going to use their node, right? So we feel that that's an inherent requirement to all layer 1 and layer 2 Web3 infrastructure that no one's talking about. Literally zero people. Dan and I are the only people that have been talking about this for years now. We believe that the fundamental requirement is the incentivization of this infrastructure, that no one's doing. Jack Dorsey, we'll incentivize our Bitcoin nodes with Bitcoin inflation, but everything else doesn't need incentivizing. How does that make any sense? It doesn't make any sense. If you're going to incentivize your Bitcoin node operators, or your Bitcoin miners, I should say, well, why don't you incentivize other infrastructure that you're going to start to have to run in this new Web 2.5? We definitely call it Web 2.5. It is not Web 3. If you don't incentivize your node operators, you don't have a decentralized token system. Of course, the maxis can't do this because they will never change their protocol. So they can't incentivize their infrastructure. So therefore, they have to justify not incentivizing it, even though they incentivize their miners. It doesn't make any sense, The other thing that we have, which is the benefit of using and Speak Network as the base layer, is that we can use DPoS voting to vote in those the most important infrastructure operators. So the ones in the Speak Network will be the validators that validate the content coming through the network and then give it to the storage nodes, so the storage nodes can store it and back it up. Those 20 validators, they're basically going to be like the Hive witnesses. They'll be voted in by the community and they'll receive rewards from the chain, right? So then you have the ability to, so instead of like where Arweave and Filecoin they've got these really complicated proof of work models to make sure that everyone's storing what they say they're storing and make sure they get rewarded for storing work and can't game the system. We just say, well, we'll just vote in 20 top people. We'll use that tech to vote people in, and then we don't have to have a really complicated proof of access storage system, because the people being rewarded are the top validators. Of course, the other people actually doing the storage will be rewarded, but you don't need to have some complicated proof of work model. You just have the validators voted in, and that's it. Which no one comprehends because no one uses coin voting. No one's, and even if they do, then they're coin voting on an ICO system that's already got a centralized vote stake, so they can't really get a fair vote system from it. So like Hive's almost the only place. So I'm going on a bit here, but just to come to the point, the infrastructure that Hive can't operate as the owner of this layer: content delivery networks, encoding, and storage. Right. So what we realize is, as long as we build our own protocol that can incentivize the content delivery, the storage, and the encoding node operators, we can have a side layer to Hive that can allow the Hive ecosystem to store off-chain content, right, and process it and deliver it, right? That's what the Speak network is. The Speak network is a side system to Hive. Hive allows us as 3Speak to do all the account stuff, all the content stuff, the text storage, the community creation, the followers list. That's all on Hive. But Hive can't do the encoding, the CDN, and the storage peer-to-peer. Well, that's what the Speak network does, and it does that for Hive. That's why Hive funds the Speak network, so it now has that possibility to do that service. And on top of that, we have made sure that there is a protocol that incentivizes the infrastructure operators so that they can stay sustainable when the network scales. And there's also, on top of that, a voting system. So the most important infrastructure is really held to account by the community, right? The technology that we use to do that is called Honeycomb, which is what Disregard's built. Yeah. So Disregard's side of this is the Honeycomb technology. He's made a copy of that. We call it the Speak network, which is what it is, but it's the tokenomic system of the Speak network. So it's the system that rewards all of that infrastructure, basically, and then allows governance, make sure the DEX is up and running. So that's basically, sorry, in a very big nutshell, a description of what the Speak network's doing.
No, I think that's important because a lot of times people talk about building on Hive, and even I'll read through like a game. Well, we're building on Hive, and I'll read their posts, and it's like, I don't understand how you're tied to Hive. It's like you said you build on Hive, but you didn't even tie it into what are you doing? And so basically what Speak Network is it's adding video, NFT, image storage in the same way Hive does with text, but you're adding that capability to Hive at the second layer, which obviously we can't do with the base layer.
Well, it's the Hive base layer can't do it, but I consider that part of Speak Network to be on an equal level to the Hive base layer on layer 1. It's the layer 2 is Honeycomb, which is the incentive system. That's the token system, the reward system, and that the node operators. That part of the Speak network is being operated by node operators that are on a layer 2. And the reason it's layer 2 is because they're using their Hive accounts and clearing on Hive. And by the way, they can clear instantly on Hive without having to batch transactions because Hive's got like 1.6 second transaction times, and it's got almost instant clearing because of the one block irreversibility. So no one on the layer 2 needs to batch. They can instantly clear every single transaction every single time, which is insane because almost every other blockchain uses batching. And so you have to trust those layer 2 operators to some extent with some of your data until they batch and send to chain and clear on chain. Don't need to do that on Hive because it's free transactions. That's the other requirement that I forgot to leave out. You have to have free transactions on the base layer in order to build these apps successfully and keep them decentralized, where most chains have fees. And so, the Speak network is in a bit of a gray area because I consider the whole thing the Speak network, but the infrastructure layer is definitely on a par on the same infrastructure layer as Hive. The tokenomics layer, because it uses Hive accounts as the base layer and clears to Hive, is a layer 2 of Hive. And that tokenomics layer is run with Honeycomb technology.
Now, in this, because I've heard you and Dan talk about in the past, being able to incorporate different things such as like an OpenSea concept with NFTs, or actually making Hive the lightning network for Bitcoin or Ethereum or some of these other tokens that can be bridged over. Is that all related to Honeycomb, or is that something different?
Yeah, no, that would use a Honeycomb layer 2 system as the transaction layer. Yeah, and then it would clear to Hive.
And is this something that is on the roadmap to build and to try to bring over Bitcoin and Ethereum and let them use Hive as the transaction layer? Maybe you should run through how that might look logistically for somebody. If I got Bitcoin in my account and I want to send it to John, how would that look?
So you've used Leo Finance, right? So Leo Finance allow you to wrap Hive on Hive and then send it to Ethereum or to Polygon, and then you get a representative Hive token on the Polygon chain, and then you can stake it to liquidity pools and get extra liquidity there. So that's the utility of that, is to go draw liquidity where the liquidity is, and then use that, right? Which is a great system. But what we want to do, so what that does is, my understanding of it is it puts your Hive into an account that has one key holder, and then, which is very well securely managed, by the way. I'm not knocking it at all. I don't want to come across like I'm knocking what Leo Finance has done. What they've done is amazing. And then they send that, then they create an account on the Polygon chain, which is also one key holder, and they then create Polygon balance, Hive balance on the Polygon chain, and then that gets sent to your account. So there's two accounts with a shit ton of Hive and Polygon tokens in them that are controlled by, I think it's some kind of multi-sig that they've got, but I don't know for sure. But it's Leo Finance's account, right? So we wanted to do it in a different way, and we want to give this away to everyone. By the way, this is not our technology. It's all going to be open source again. Everything we do is open source, and we want to be free for everyone. And so one of the cool things that you can do with this technology is you can decentralize those two accounts on both sides of the swap, right? So what we could have is we could have a bunch of Hive accounts on Honeycomb that are using Honeycomb. And what you do is you effectively send your Hive to them, but that account or those accounts are controlled by multiple different multi-sig holders. And those multi-sig holders are elected in by the community on a DPoS vote, based on a stake-weighted vote, right? So they're accountable to the community. And if the community decides they don't like one of them, they unvote them, and then the money automatically gets sent across to a new account, and the keys are swapped out, and everyone that's still in the top 20 gets the new key, and the guy that got kicked out doesn't get the new key, right? That is possible. That is built, by the way. Peer players have achieved that technology already. It's called SONS technology, and they have that wrapping technology running. And then the idea would be to do exactly the same thing on the Polygon side, or on the ETH side, or the BTC, or whichever side you send into. So you have genuinely decentralized swaps, and then the accounts send money between each other to swap your token and then spit out to you on the other end, right? That, to me, it's a revolutionary system, and it's possible on DPoS, you know. And that's what that is to me, is truly decentralized swap mechanisms, and that's what we want to build. We want to bring decentralized swapping to this ecosystem. Less chance of hacking, more secure, just far cleverer, more representative of the community. The way it should be, the way we could really use this technology. And other chains can't conceptualize this because they don't have the free transactions, they don't have the instant clearing times, you know, they don't have the lightweight accounts, they don't have the resource management systems, they don't have the governance voting, they don't have decentralized chains, they have ICO stakes, you know, all these things they can't conceptualize of it. Here it's possible, on Hive it's possible. And then what would happen? So the way we're practically implementing this at the moment, we're working with peer players. We've been working with them for a long time. It's been slow progress, but we're getting there. Hopefully we'll get there. There's a few more things to clear out, but it's looking like we'll get there eventually. And the idea is that you have a group of decentralized accounts on Hive, a group of decentralized accounts on your target chain where you're sending to, and a group of decentralized accounts on peer plays. You wrap from Hive to peer play. So you take your Speak Network token, let's say. it's ultimately cleared on the base layer of Hive. It wraps from Speak Network to Peerplace, where it's stored in Peerplace. Both sides of that wrap have both got decentralized voting escrows, and then Peerplace wraps to the final chain. And what you do as the user, we've already had an interface designed where it just goes from Hive to whichever chain XYZ, right? But in the back end, it's going through Peerplace because they've built the technology, they've got everything running there. I wouldn't advise to put much money in it for now. I wouldn't ever advocate that. I think it's something that's still in test. It's something that's still bouncing around. It's not even built yet, right? But when it does get released, I wouldn't like put your whole freaking life savings in there, but just play around with it. The tech's still being built. Our principle is to try to make sure everything is decentralized, right? As decentralized as it possibly can be. And if it's not, it's a red flag, in our opinion. So we're working with that system. We're trying to just get the tech built into DPoS, built into Graphene, or built onto at least a layer 2 on Hive, right? Once we have that, then people can go and further develop on it. They can go change it slightly, do what they want with it, make it more secure if they don't feel it's secure enough. But the idea is that the tech will be there, right? And then people can do what they want with it. That, to me, is a key part of Speak Network. It's a key part of what Hive needs, and it's a key piece of getting decentralized swaps to and from a DPoS base layer. To me, if you can get Bitcoin then wrapped from Bitcoin to Hive, we know that Peerplace has achieved definitely a decentralized wrap of Bitcoin to Peerplace. They've definitely done that. I've used it. And so that means now you've got Bitcoin bouncing around a Graphene DPoS chain, right? If we can get that, then the final leg of that bridge from Peerplace to Hive, you have Bitcoin bouncing around Hive. That means Bitcoin transactions for free, instant clearing, all that good stuff. You can stick it on Honeycomb on the layer 2, so it's just super lightweight. Like, you can then have smart contracts running on top of that. You don't need smart contracts on the layer 1, like all these other chains have. That is what the Lightning Network wants to be. Except that the nodes that are running it, they're using Speak Network nodes, which cost $5 a month to run, and any guy can run it. I've seen guys that have never run nodes before run Speak Network nodes and learn how to do it fairly quickly, and we've got extensive instructions there on how to do it. People are actually able to run the nodes, whereas Lightning Network is quite involved. And then secondly, if you're not doing it, if you're still clearing to Hive, you're not using the layer 2, you don't even need a layer 2 node. You just use the Hive witnesses nodes, and they're always up and running. As long as you've got a Hive account, it's the equivalent of having a full Lightning node with no dev skills at all, right? You don't need any dev skills to have a Hive account. So this means that this technology gets us to a place where we can replicate and outperform the Lightning Network by far with free transactions. With no
and not only do
where
that for Bitcoin, you can do it for Ethereum, you can do it for whatever anybody taps into.
All these fees in DeFi, they go. Because now you can build, because on the layer 2, you can build smart contracts, and on the layer 2, therefore, you can have liquidity pools and DeFi. So all these fees, I mean, imagine the fees, even on the low fee chains, like you can just smash them out of the water and it's instant clearing and it's smart, far cleaner, far smarter accounts with alphanumeric names, like just smashes it. And then you're going to have the whole off-chain stuff combined with that. You know, the video storage is centralized, the storage of text on Hive is centralized. It's massive. It's a complete element to the system. And it would then allow, the other thing that we like a lot is Brian of London's work, because he's a noticeable voice in the Lightning community, let's put it that way. And once he has access to this technology, he's going to be able to go over to them and say, hey, look over here, guys, look what we can do. What are you guys even doing this for anymore? You know, that's where it potentially gets to. So I just think it's massive. I think it's massive potential.
One of the things I wanted to ask you, Matt, I've been going back through old posts, and one of the things that got me really excited about Hive in the early days, and I know it got John excited, and he read right into it, was SMTs. And those obviously...
SMTs, turning the steam, blockchain into a shitcoin machine.
Was that an old Steambird song?
Yeah.
You guys remember? Yeah.
They were at Hive Fest, by the way. I met them at Hive Fest.
Yeah, I met them in Krakow for Steamfest 3.
I met them in Krakow, but this time they were at High. I didn't even expect them to turn up, but they were just there, kind of hanging around. You know,
that's awesome.
Really, really.
Those guys are legends.
Yeah. They are.
Well, anyway, without the jingle that Matt had to throw in, he's multi-talented. He may not know the technical stuff, but he does know tunes. And next show he'll rap for us.
That's all you need. That's all you need.
SMTs, I thought, held such potential for Hive because you had the ability, in theory, the way it was spelled out, where you could duplicate what Hive was. You could pair Hive with the SMT, so it was always the trading, and you set up exchanges, and you have all this trading back and forth, and just the way you were inserting Hive, or you could do HBD right in the center of that was amazing. And now that you're talking about this with Speak Network, with Honeycomb, with smart contracts, and we're talking about tokenization, tokenized communities, these things of this nature, does this carry the same potential for Hive, absolutely, in your opinion, as SMTs did?
Absolutely, it does. The community tokens will be on layer 2 Honeycomb, in our opinion. We are building that technology. We're being very careful on how we allow people to distribute it, because we believe that if you just distribute a token and put 10, 15, 20, 30, 40% into your pocket, it's fine for many things. Don't get me wrong. Like if you're selling restaurant reviews, it really doesn't matter if it's not going to cause any issues, because you're going to be able to come to some kind of compromise if you ever get regulated. But if you're selling, I shouldn't say selling, if you're running a free speech infrastructure, you cannot compromise. You cannot release an unregistered security, because once you do it, you will see what happened to Library. Yeah, their token is being basically regulated to hell, right? But that's because they gave themselves a 40% pre-mine, right? But when it comes down to free speech, these fundamental human square free speech square goods have to be on ownerless layers that are not regulatable by the powers that be, under the law at least. So because these communities, and the other thing is as well, the real powerful thing with these so-called SMTs, I don't want to call them SMTs, so we call our breakaway communities, and they have their own platforms that you can spin up like this. You can spin up your own XNC fork, have your own platform without paying anything. All you have to have is a Hive community, a URL, a server, and they're all easy to get these days, and we give you instructions on how to do it. You copy and paste some code from a command into a command prompt on your computer, and boom, you've got your own freaking platform, right? So this is the fundamental basis, and that platform is run just with that community. It only lists that community's content, which is immutable on Hive. So the community is not deletable. You've got now sovereign access over your own platform. You didn't have to build it. You didn't have to pay for it, right? So then the next question is, can we distribute tokens to those platforms, to those breakaway community platforms, so they can have their own genuine economies and tokens? So the first thing that we're working on is, how do we distribute those tokens to people without them being listed as securities, and try to prevent them from doing it, especially when it comes to, because what you have to realize is these communities, if they have their own platforms, the platforms are using the Speak Network, the platforms are using Hive to store their content, to run their infrastructure, to incentivize their infrastructure operators, to get members of their community running simple nodes to keep the whole thing up and running. That is incredibly, incredibly powerful. It's insane, because it's not shut down. You can't shut that down, right? Then if those people then go drop a token to themselves and give themselves 10% of the token, what do you think? And then they become big, or they're already big and they onboard 500,000 people into their community, and then they drop the token and give themselves 10% of the token. What do you think is going to happen to that? You know, if that starts to become influential, they're going to get shut down, or they're going to get chased, or something's going to happen, right? You're going to have to come up with some way of compromising themselves, their community, everything they stood for. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to figure out a way, which we basically did, we think. And this is all tests. We'll go back and forth with it. But what we're going to do is on these breakaway community platforms, we're going to allow the creators of those platforms, or the content creators, or the community managers, or whoever they are, right, to say to their communities, post to our platform for the next 3 months, 4 months, 6 months, whatever. If you post a lot and you interact a lot and you do a lot of things, you will accumulate points, just like the XNC point system. We're basically we're back engineering it because they haven't open sourced that code. So we're building our own version of it. But the more you interact with the platform, the more points you accumulate over time. And you'll do that over a 3, 4, 6 month period if you're a genuine member of that community, right? And then we're building, of course, we know that's going to get botted. So we're building ways to, I'll tell you what we want to do on that. This is where layer 2 gets interesting. So we're currently devising a way to allow people to downvote those points if the content is crap, and they've got to give a set of reasons. So when they do a downvote, they've got to like select from 5 or 6 or 7 criteria with another one, an other as well, right? And explain why they're downvoting. The downvote goes through, and then the person that gets downvoted can appeal. They can appeal the downvote, and then we're going to have a jury system of people who either volunteer themselves or are elected in on a DPoS vote by the community as a set of jurors. And I don't know if that second one's probably not going to end up. It's probably going to be voluntary. But the people who appeal have to pay, say, $5. Yeah, so over time it should cover the cost of the jury appeals. The juries will then receive that money, and they'll have reputations in the ecosystem. And so you'll be able to see what the appeal result was, and it'll be very clear on the content if that juror is corrupt or not, and then the community can deal with that juror as required. But the jurors will be people that genuinely care about this. I genuinely believe that, and there'll be a few trolls, and then they'll troll in our faces, but it won't be anywhere near as easy to execute false downvotes or abuse the downvote system. So we'll have that way of stopping bots and people and false downvotes, but we'll have a downvote system in there as well, so the community can self-regulate. We think that's how we're going to do anyway. We've discussed it, but we haven't started building that system. So then after some time, we should have a way, and we'll have other ways that we build in to decide whether or not the account's a bot, because it's very clear. The beauty of Hive that's very clear to me is over 5, 6, 7 years of it operating, we know even the anonymous accounts, we know whether they're bots or not. We know whether they're real humans. And we never have to do a single second of KYC. And this is incredibly powerful as well, right? So we have that base to go off. So now you can start to say, okay, after 6 months, we're going to drop these tokens to the community. But the key is you don't drop it to yourself. You don't drop a single token to yourself. You don't drop a token to the community manager or the community head or the content creator behind that community, right? You drop it to the people who posted. And then what happens? They get the token, and it's proof of brain token. So now the content manager and the community manager, as they post to that community and they post content, they're going to get upvotes from the people who got the airdrop. And then that's going to start allowing them to earn their token. And the key is the word earn, because that stops it from being a security. If you had to earn all of your tokens or buy them off the open market before and at the same time as everyone else could buy them, that ain't a security. That is legit. And so what that does is it puts the community in a position where the people that create that community are no longer considered illegal security listers, and they can't be shut down. And then because you've got the decentralized infrastructure operating, those communities now have they now have a base token distributed. They at least have a token distribution that is not going to be classed as a security. And that then, and then they can release a DAO next to that as well. So say 10% of the drop goes into a DAO. And then that DAO can be voted on by a decentralized community that wasn't dropped in an ICO to some insiders. And that community can vote in a decentralized way on proposals that may or may not fund the operating team of that community, right? So now they can host their own videos, they can host their own content, they can run their own economy. And then what you're going to do? How do we make the token sustainable? Because that's not a sustainable token, by the way. That's still a distribution model. So distribution models go to zero ultimately, unless there's some speculative interest in it for some reason or other. You need a fundamental value lock-in to the token economics. So to us, the most obvious one, but this isn't necessarily the only one, but it's certainly one we want to work on over the next year or two. You would have a mechanism that's automated as much as possible, that the community can submit NFT images every month, let's say. And then the community has a way to select which ones are the most valuable. And those images should be relevant to what's happened in that community over the last month, right? So it's like a documentation of the community, by the community, for the community, of the history of that community, right? So certain parts of that community will make waves at some point, and those moments of history will be locked in those NFTs. And then what you say is, if you hold a shit ton of these tokens, you get access to the rarest NFTs every month, and they get sent to your account, right? And if you have less tokens, you get like the more common ones. And then if you have almost like, if you like say in the top 20 holders, then you get the most common ones, maybe 10 access to 10 copies, compared to like the top holder will get the one copy of the most important one. And what this does is, it's like receiving, it's the same mentality as receiving a dividend in a stock. The stock takes in value from the economy by creating profits, and then it gives some of those profits to its most loyal holders of its stock, right, via the dividend. So you're incentivized as a holder not to sell, and you're actually incentivized to hold more stock, because the more stock you hold, the more dividends you get. Well, this is the same mentality, and that's what turns stocks into growth mechanisms. That's why they grow over time, because they're constantly generating profits and giving those profits back to their community. And when they stop making profits, you'll see the stock price go down. So there's like an inherent incentive for people to buy stocks to get the dividends, and that's what turns stocks into a growth mechanism. We want to do a similar idea with these NFTs. It's like, instead of getting dividends, you get rare NFTs distributed to you. So the people who hold the most tokens will get the most rare NFTs that will document the history of that community. And if that community then becomes successful, those NFTs should be worth something, because they're rare and issued from the community itself. They're legit. So that's one way to turn the token prices into growth mechanisms and encourage people to hold more of the tokens. You can do other things like Hive, for example. It has a resource credit model. So the apps that run on Hive and the users that use Hive a lot, they have to have a significant amount of Hive staked in the ecosystem so they can get access to resource credits, to then access the resources of the chain. That is a scalable, sustainable economic model based on the size of the network, right? So as long as the network's growing, you should have a growing token price. If the network drops off for some reason, you'll get a decrease in token price, because you get less demand for the token, because there's less demand for resource credits. So we may end up building something similar into these tokenomic models as well, to make them sustainable tokens, to give them growth. Anything we can do to add growth mechanisms to these tokens and make them into legit, decentralized, unregulatable, only regulatable by the community themselves, sovereign, distributed communities that have legit, decentralized, sustainable economic models that are built into them from day one, right? And distributed in a fair way that doesn't class them as securities. That there is what SMTs were supposed to be. And we are going to build that on the Speak Network Layer 2 honeycomb technology system. It's not our top priority right now. It's something that's going to happen over time. It's not in our immediate goals. The immediate goal is to get proof of access out, get the network infrastructure nodes out to everyone, get them running, get the tokens started distributing, get a few of the validator nodes voted in. But over time, for sure, the next phase of this is to build these token distribution models for communities, so the communities can benefit from the same thing that Hive benefits from in terms of its sustainable tokenomic model. And then once we have that, if you get 500,000 people into one of these communities with a sustainable, legit model that they actually regulate their own economy, right, with voting, and they're not idiots, they don't print themselves into oblivion. That's the foundation for a spin-up model of a network state. This is where this is going to be, SMTs turning the Steam blockchain into a shitcoin machine. This is going to be breakaway community tokens turning the Hive blockchain into a network state generator. I have to think of the rhyming words that go with that, but that is what that is. And the network state. So the thing is that you listen to Balaji talk to Lex Friedman on his 7-hour interview. I don't know if you guys have heard that, but it's really worth listening to. This guy's a legit guy. He's as smart as fuck. He's well recognized, published all over the world, written books on this stuff, but he's never really gone into the tokenomics of it and how that's really going to work, because no one's talking about this stuff. No one knows this. No one knows how Hive was set up, how it was attacked, how it's not a security, how it's regulatable only by its own by its own community. No one knows how to do this stuff, because not that we invented it. We never invented it. We just went through it, and we've ended up on the other side, looking back, going, "Oh shit, this really is how we should have done it." We kind of stumbled into it, And so we know how to do this. And when we get that Speak Network stuff up, I mean, it's going to give Balaji wet dreams, in my opinion, because the guy's going to look at it and go, holy shit, this is how you build a network state economy that is a law unto itself. You know, I don't mean that as a negative thing, but I genuinely believe that sovereign communities with their own economies that are sustainable, that are distributed and built in a proper way on unregulatable layer one, ownless layer ones that can't be deleted, that provide human rights to everyone to do this stuff, that is insanely powerful, to the point where you get 500,000 people in one of these communities, they buy themselves, they print their own money with a sustainable economic model, providing value in some way, and then they start buying land, right? And then that land, on that land, they use that land to provide some product or some service that they then sell to the neighboring states. And those traditional states recognize via contract the sovereignty of the network states, that now, once they're recognized for trade, and that I think their economies will be way stronger than the original states, because we all know how fucked up the economics is at the moment in the Web 2 or the traditional financial model world. I just think that it's a leveler, because what it does is, at the moment we've got something like 150 states that can print their own money. When I say print their own money, I appreciate that they don't literally print their own money, but they regulate their own economies and they have their own currencies, right? Well, once you have these network states up and running on this system, I don't think any other system is going to realize how important those fundamental things I just talked about are. They will make a leveler for the world, because you'll go from 150 states that can print their own money to thousands. I shouldn't say print their own money. I should say regulate their own economies and create their own sustainable economies. You're going to go to thousands of them, and they're going to be incredibly powerful. Some of them will be everywhere and nowhere at the same time, and some of them will be based on land, and they'll have recognized contracts with existing states. I mean, it's a new paradigm, completely new paradigm, and it represents a massive period of freedom for humanity, in my opinion. I don't know whether it's going to be a bumpy transition across, but there'll definitely be some form of transition. And I just think it represents a viable alternative to the jab me up, follow my politics, otherwise I'm going to ban your Web 2 social media account. This is, well, now I can voluntarily move across to a place where I've got guaranteed rights to transact, to speak, to grow community, to build businesses, to build states. You know, I've got guaranteed rights to do it, and I can do it peacefully as well, by the way, and provide a genuine alternative that people can voluntarily move across to. And that's what this is all about, you know. And the better those tools are, the better this whole humanity is going to be, in my opinion.
Well, I will tell you, the basket weavers of America are looking forward to this, because most do not realize how ostracized those basket weavers are. I mean, they've been kicked off YouTube, Twitter. I mean, they were kicked off long before Alex Jones was even popular.
I shouldn't laugh. Yes, you're right. And I shouldn't underestimate the power and the danger of those basket weavers. I'm sure they've got some wrath in them.
They are a radical bunch, too. You better watch out for them. John, any questions from the peanut gallery, or any comments or anything that you see floating around out there?
No, it was good. I mean, I'm just fascinated with how all this is going to take shape. And I loved what you said. Other than using the unshutdownable again, the Scrabble word, I love that.
Did I use that again?
Trademark that. But like you said, how we stumbled into this, right? And I mean, I think that's the history lesson, and I've heard Dan talk about it. I know you guys have talked about this too. The history of how Hive is now, how we've got here, is like blockchain lore, and we've always fly under the radar. We're never talked about, but just like you said, we stumbled upon, and I'm biased. I'm sure Task is biased, but I think the perfect distributed blockchain model. And I don't know if anyone thought it was going to happen like that, but it did.
Now, one of the things I want to make clear that, well, I mean, I don't know whether it's true or not, but the evidence points to it that the guy and the guys that built this, the Steam model originally, I don't think they fully understood what they were building. And no slight on them. I mean, I don't fully understand what the Speed Network's going to be, right? It's going to be what it's going to be. It's going to go on its own path. I think the fact that the founder of EOS didn't put 3-month power downs into his new product after he put 3-month power downs into Steam. And then that was the specific prevented takeovers. I mean, that shows that there wasn't a fundamental understanding of the technology there. And there's been so many other things that have come from this. And I don't want to slight the guy. The guy's a fucking genius, yeah. But I don't think anyone really understands the power of these blockchains that they're building. And it's only with hindsight. And certainly there's no way that I don't think any human on the planet could have planned all of this out to understand all the hoops that would have had to have been jumped through to get to the place where we are now. I just think we're just a bunch of people that stuck to our laurels, stuck to our principles, stayed on Hive because of the community, because of how free it was. And as it turns out, it's managed to jump through all the hoops it needed to jump through to get to a place where we look back and go, shit, this is how you do it. This really is how you do it. And nobody's doing it this way.
And nobody can duplicate it either, because
it's going to be very hard, because once the word gets out, it's going to be really hard to duplicate, because there's going to be loads of people trying to stop it from happening again, you know. So that we might get one or two. We might get one or two more attempts. But I mean, for sure, like Dan and I have spoken. We haven't quite done it yet, but we've spoken a lot about writing a book on this, how to go from 0 to A to Z, and make sure that your project remains as decentralized as possible, based on the experiences that we've had with Hive and the experience that we're implementing going forwards on Speak Network. There's a certain set of principles that you could write a book on that people should really follow, and that they're not following. They are not following them. And so they're going to be compromised later. But the problem is that once you write the book and a few people copy it and they realize that it can't be shut down at that point, everyone's going to try it. And then it's going to get gamed and botted and all sorts of things. It's just like Bitcoin. Bitcoin's release was immaculate because it wasn't taken seriously for so long. You know?
Well, I think one of the first pages of your book is, and this is the problem with trying to duplicate it, go completely and 110% against human nature, because that's really what you have to do.
That's where the
don't pay
yourself.
yourself. Don't look to control it. Don't look to be mine. Go the opposite way and go 110% counterintuitive to what your natural tendencies tell you.
That's a very interesting point.
Who's going to do that?
That's the book. That's the book. Then you just wrote it.
No need to write the book. Summed it up in three sentences. I mean, but it's just, this goes against everything we are taught. And maybe if we go out to a bigger question, I don't want to get on a long rant with this because it'll put John to sleep. But if we look at the scarcity economics model that we live under versus what you said before, the abundance, it really is the transition. And we were all reared in this scarcity model economically that says, I have to gather unto mine because there's not going to be enough. And you're coming here with the Speak Network saying, we're going to open source all of this. We hope it mushrooms into 10,000 Three Speaks. We don't care if Three Speaks gets bowled over. It's fine. We'll still have our core community. Task will still be posting 1,000 videos a year, and that's what he does. And John won't go anywhere because if he has to learn something new technical, he gets confused and bitches and moans.
So all power to him. You know, if someone even takes the 3 Speak code that we've got up to date, that we worked on up to date, right? And they take it away and they tweak it, and they're a better team and they work more diligently on it than we have, because we haven't been perfect. We've been concentrating on the Speak Network a lot. We're well aware there's many faults with Free Speak, the platform. They take that away, a separate dev team. They really like video platforms. They go, well, you know what? I'm going to build this video platform and make it even better than 3 Speak. Then people migrate across. I'd love that to happen. I really would. Like, that's the mentality. To me, I'm just like, that's the mentality that Web3, true Web3 enables you to have. Because I'm going to benefit from there being a better 3 Speak, because I own the base layer tokens and I've earned them over time, and other people can as well, you know. And it's just like, that's the mentality that allows you, it almost pushes you into an abundance mentality rather than a scarcity protection mentality, you know.
Yeah, it gets from the this is mine to I started this, but I don't own it, because it's on the base layer, it's on the blockchain, it's open source. So I may have started it, but it's not mine.
But I'll benefit from your efforts. That's the thing. We'll all benefit from someone else's efforts. You know, that's the thing. And they benefit because they don't have to start from scratch. And they get a bolting community already, and they get all the platforms that developed up to where they are now. And if they've got a few ideas they want to tweak, they can more easily achieve that. than having to start from scratch and then build a whole community. So it's like a win-win all over, you know.
Hey, John, we might want to get ourselves some of this Hive stuff.
Dude, that's what I was saying for the past couple of weeks over my new Hive goals that I do every week. It's Hive focused. I mean, that's literally I'm so all in on Hive right now, my mentality, and I think things like Speak Network is cements my, you know, that little gut feeling that's like, hey, you should stick with this Hive stuff, and you know. There's a little voice,
the dirty red devil on your left shoulder, yeah.
Well, yeah, but it's also, you know, like the Steambirds. It's also, you know, oh, I'm going to get into this SMT that's going to be a shit coin for everyone. Everyone gets a shit coin. Like Hive is, you know, so powerful because we see things like Speak Network being developed, and you know, I mean, we're raving fanboys. So maybe maybe we should look into this Hive thing. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. Can you break away from Ethereum? I know we're going to have to send you the account.
I tried logging into my MetaMask last week, and I gave up after 17 tries. I was like, forget it. Like, it's gone. My tokens are gone. Like, I don't even care. Like, all of my Cub finance, all that Polycub is gone. It's totally gone, and whatever. I hate it. Can't stand MetaMask. Anything about Ethereum. Anyway, dude.
You'll be able to log on to Hive soon with your MetaMask account.
Oh, I can't wait. I'm telling you. Like, I can't wait for it. I'm so excited. Oh, dude. Always a pleasure, man. Love having you on. Love everything you guys are doing. And this is the year of the Speak, man. I have a feeling. Definitely have a good feeling about this. So. I know Task is, but I mean, 2,000 videos. I was getting cocky, going, "Oh, he did 2,000. I did 1,000."
That's
dude.
Insane.
I've done 500, and I thought I was like,
and you're a beast. You know, yeah. He's definitely an AI. He's definitely that's confirmation right there.
Look at him. He looks like Max Headroom without the hair. I mean, it's like.
Do you know what he's doing? You know what he's
you're
doing?
dating yourself, John. Max Headroom.
Yeah.
You know why he's smiling so much? Because he's just thought of like 5 more ideas to do videos about during this chat.
Oh, for sure.
Like, guys, I gotta go. I got
I got my idea. Like, I've written mine down, but I know he's got 5. That's the difference between him and I, right? Like, I'll get one good idea. I'll be like, yeah. He'll get like 17 in like a minute. It's like, yeah, okay.
The best part of that video thing is Cal was out there bragging about 300 videos.
I know.
And he's like, I just had 300 videos, and I didn't say anything because I was waiting until I got to the 2,000. But then he commented, I just said, "You're a rookie. Keep trying."
I love it. Listen, gents, I'd love to stay and chat with you guys a bit more, but I've got an appointment right now that I'm a little bit late for. But it's been great chatting. I've got to get off, man. But I feel like this is the point where the best shit happens. Actually, we should stay do another hour just talking shit from now on. You know.
Oh yeah, that's the power, man. The power of
Matt. Not like we haven't done that before.
Yeah, well, we got a lot
6
more
hours
to talk
later,
about.
Dan logs back on and says, "You two are still fucking talking." Yeah, Dan.
Yeah. You should be ashamed. Still going on.
Appreciate you, man. Matt. And everybody who's
Appreciate
listening, pay attention to Speak Network and 3Speak, and post videos on 3Speak. Support the network.
Yeah, thank you guys. All the best.
Ciao.